don't think it can happen to you.
The hit-and-run chase in California, a motorcycle rider witnessing a driver slam into several cars and then speeding away.
It can happen to you within seconds, a blink of an eye.
Tonight about the man suspected of killing a woman in a hit-and-run and his plan to evade justice.
When you take your eyes off the road for just seconds, when you're driving your car, oh, yes, it can happen to you. See, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When the sands of time will run out within your hourglass.
New at 10, a hit and run caught on video, and now a teenager and his family are looking for the driver who took off.
He was a victim of a distracted driver hitting the road while riding his motorcycle going 65 miles per hour. He nearly lost his life. Now on a crusade to help save lives and prevent someone else from becoming a victim, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com and now the host of this podcast, it's Howard Drescher.
All right, welcome. Welcome to another show of DistractedDriversBusted.com, the podcast show. I am your host, Howard Drescher, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com, and of course now this podcast show. And you can follow me on Twitter at DistractedDBTV, at DistractedDBTV, and of course on Facebook it's DistractedDB. And of course you can get the shows on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. Just type in the keywords DistractedDB. This is part 2 in a 4-part miniseries with my special guest, Dawne McKay. She's a victim, a survivor, and an author of the book Talk Crash to Me. Now, in last week's episode, we talked a few items in the first 3 chapters. Now, we didn't want to give away the whole story, so that's why we didn't talk about everything. But we wanted to talk about some of the highlights, some of the key important facts. Dawne, welcome back to Distracted Drivers Busted, the podcast show. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thanks, Howard. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Again, we talked a little bit about the first couple of chapters, a couple of items in each chapter that we're covering, because I think it's a very important book, because for me, as I read each chapter, I looked at it and I said, yes, I did this. No, I didn't do this. And, oh, I know nothing about this. And I think with what you wrote here is beneficial to each and every person, whether they've had a crash or not. They need to have something in their car at all times. And I think this is the book that can do it.
Well, thank you very much, Howard. And again, thanks very much for having me on again for part 2 of 4. And, I look forward to speaking with you about a few chapters of Talk Crash to Me this evening.
Yeah, and honestly, to tell you the truth, I think there's a lot of different things in these chapters. And we talk about, like, in this next chapter we want to talk about, the contingency, the free, and the, in applying for beverages, or I'm sorry, not benefit. All right, I'm going to start that part again.
That's okay.
It's really important because you talk about, in this next chapter we're talking about, what is a contingency fee and applying for a benefit with the coverage. Think about that for a minute. There is different things that can happen and different things that can't happen that can either help your case and hurt your case and help you along in benefits and not. Can we talk about some of them?
Oh, sure. So the benefits, of course, again, I'm in Ontario, Canada. You're in California. Mm-hmm. But, when you're involved in a motor vehicle crash, you certainly, if you're injured and you need time to recovery, you definitely have to look into, if you're employed at the time or even if you've got private insurance, you definitely have to look in to see what your coverage is. And usually if you obtain a personal injury lawyer, they can help guide your way through that. But, everybody's plan is different when it comes to your rehabilitation benefits. And as far as the contingency plan goes, a vast majority of personal injury lawyers all across the world offer a contingency fee, which means if you do decide to obtain a personal injury lawyer and sign on with them to look after your motor vehicle claim, then you don't have to give them any money up front. There are no fees involved. It's a free consultation. If you decide to go with them, then you sign on with them. And when your case settles, they would get a certain percentage of the settlement fund for all the work that they've done throughout your motor vehicle claim. So it's really important for people to know that, the personal injury lawyers, you don't have to give them a retainer. You don't have to grasp at straws looking for money. They do everything on a contingency basis, which is fantastic for any person that has been in a motor vehicle crash.
And so initially, this is kind of like a retainer type thing, until you decide whether or not, hey, I want you to handle my case.
Right, yeah. They would offer the free consultation, and they could do that over the phone. And nowadays, with the pandemic, personal injury lawyers have taken full advantage of being able to talk to their clients virtually, either on a Zoom chat or on the phone, which is fantastic. And I think a lot of personal injury lawyers going forward will offer that to people that have been in motor vehicle crashes. I would love to have had that offered to me when I was in my motor vehicle crash. Of course, you're talking on the phone, et cetera, with your personal injury lawyer, but if you have to attend something, to do it virtually by Zoom is fantastic. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. So, so I'm hoping going forward, I'm hearing a lot of positive, that it's opened up a lot of doors for lawyers, that they're able to do so much more virtually from home, and they're hoping to stick with that now, so clients can feel more comfortable at home.
Now here I'm reading this in this, and if you can kind of explain to me a little bit more in detail what this means. No fault benefit. You can claim insurance benefits even if you are at fault. So
yes, and that I can't speak, to the legal aspect of it, because of course I'm not a lawyer. I'm a victim of a motor vehicle crash. But yes, here in Ontario, Canada, who's ever at fault would definitely be covered by insurance.
Okay. I see.
Whether you're at fault or not. So in my particular case, I wasn't doing anything wrong. The driver that rear-ended me was completely 100% at fault.
Right.
But there's cases that maybe, somebody ran a stop sign. Maybe 3 vehicles were involved. And, no matter who's at fault. Now, with her insurance, the person that struck me, her insurance would cover her as a motor vehicle driver.
Right.
Whether because she was at fault. So her insurance company would have stepped up to cover her in this particular case.
Okay, so I'm going to take a guess here, and this next thing I want to hit up on is the fact that whether you're not at fault, more or less, coverage for medical devices and medical expenses, rehabilitation expenses. Now, is that something like that you claim, one, against their insurance, or your lawyer is going to help expedite that if you retain a lawyer? Hey, look, my client here was rear-ended by your insured person. You're going to pay for the rehabilitation, the expenses, the medical devices, whatever happens. And is that really more or less what you're talking about there? Because I think that's kind of important.
It is very important. In my case, in my own personal experience, I dealt with, my personal injury lawyer dealt with my insurance company on my behalf. So what they do here is they give you a set amount of rehabilitation costs that, it all depends if you just have regular insurance. People take out extra insurance on their vehicle. So they give you a dollar amount. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, they write you a check for, $50,000 or $70,000 to do with what you want with it.
Right.
It just means this is the max amount we're going to pay for any support and rehabilitation that you need. And then as you start the process and start seeing your rehabilitation team, which could be physio, occupational therapy, some people have speech-language pathologists, the list can go on and on. What we do here is we have to fill out certain forms, or the personal injury lawyer will fill it out on your behalf if you're not able to. And then they send it to insurance. So it has to be pre-approved through your motor vehicle insurance. And once it's approved, they will approve for a set of treatments.
Right.
So let's say they approve six treatments. They approve it, and when you run out of those 6 treatments, that same paperwork has to be filled out.
I see.
So they're carefully watching exactly what you need and where the money is going.
Well, that kind of makes sense. They don't want to have anybody giving false claims and charging extra, and I get that. That makes sense.
Absolutely. And it's very important as a survivor that is recovering to keep in mind that even though you are either filling out the forms by yourself or having your healthcare professional fill it out, or even a personal injury lawyer, and the visits are being paid for through your insurance. So, you go in for your visit, you go in for your hour visit with physio, and you show up and you leave, and everything's taken care of.
Right.
And it's really important for people to understand that if they're recovering at home, just because insurance is paying for it, you should always ask for a copy of a receipt.
Exactly.
You should never take it for granted that everything's just going to work itself out. You have to get into the habit of either getting a receipt every time or asking for a statement every couple of months, just to see exactly where the money's being spent and to make sure that rehabilitation center or clinic is getting paid at the appropriate time. Because I ran into a situation where the clinic I was attending, getting most of my rehab done for my recovery, it turned out I had found out that that particular clinic hadn't been submitting the invoices for the service they were giving to me for over a year.
Wow.
And insurance companies, I guess they were backlogged with their bookkeeping. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but they missed it. And a lot of insurance companies have tight deadlines, meaning, if you're a clinic that's been pre-approved for visits and expecting payment and you're not billing the proper way, the insurance is liable to deny it after a few months and say, no, you shouldn't be billing. It's too late now. It's 6 months later. Luckily enough for me, they did some investigation and they never got back to me asking for funds from me. But it was well over a year before they billed the insurance company, and that's a big no-no. So I think a lot of people that are recovering and going through rehab don't realize how important it is to keep all your documents of every visit out there, even a phone call. If you're doing virtual visits with a rehab team, everything is so important to keep. And I know it sounds like a lot to do, but if you do it every day, it's easier just to do it as you go and just kind of throw it in a box. You don't have to organize it. Just throw it in the box and put the lid on it every time and just say, okay, it's all in there. If I ever need it, that's where it is.
All right. Again, you're listening to DistractedDriversBusted.com, the podcast show. My special guest is Dawne McKay. Talk Crash to Me. This is the second show of a 4-show mini-series that we're kind of doing. We're talking a little bit about each and every item. Not each and every item, but in each and every chapter, 1 or 2 items that will kind of make you think a little bit, and then I want you to go out and buy the book. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it. Where else can you get it, Dawne?
You can actually go right onto my website, crashsupportnetwork.com. There's a link there right on the home page that you can click on and order from Amazon. And if there's any large businesses, organizations, or law firms out there that are looking to hand this book to their clients as they recover, they can certainly fire me off an email at info@crashsupportnetwork.com, because I'd love to speak to you to see, for quantity size orders. I'm completely open to that at a discounted price. And I am starting to network with quite a few law firms.
Exactly. That's perfect.
That are ordering quantity orders of my book, because when they take a new client on, this is something that they want to hand to their client because they feel it's a great value It's an added service to what they're already doing for a client. So, yeah.
That is perfect, because I'm going to tell you, this is a must-read. I mean, I'm finding out things that I should have done, I didn't do, things that I didn't know, that go, oh, wow. And, of course, I do find the items that I did do, so I'm not totally in the dark on this. But you just talked a little bit about when you got paperwork. You want to fill them out. So what happens if you get documents from insurance companies? Do you need to fill them out, or can you hand them to your lawyer, or do they explain it to you? You just maybe just don't want to go off and fill them out and sign them, and then you're on your way.
Right. Well, I would certainly not recommend having yourself fill out any type of form for an insurance company, especially if you've obtained a personal injury lawyer, because people have to keep in mind, once you obtain a personal injury lawyer, they work for you. You shouldn't be doing anything. Your personal injury lawyer should be taking care of any type of document that comes in that needs a signature. You know, when you attend appointments, especially if you're seeing a doctor for the first time, you know, they might get you to sign a document if you're getting an assessment done. And it's really, really, really important to not just take anyone's word for it and fill it out and send a form back without completely understanding it. And it doesn't hurt to run it by your personal injury lawyer. If you've obtained a lawyer, they want to know that you've got a document in the mail. And usually the law firm, if you mention it to them and say, you know, I've got this document, I'm not sure what to do with it, they're going to say, could you please send it into the office? We'll take care of it.
Oh, that's
very,
perfect.
very important.
So let's talk about this for a minute. What do actually personal injury lawyers actually do for you on kind of on your behalf? I mean, I know they do. I know certain things they do, but what else do they do that I may not even know?
Oh, well, as soon as you obtain a personal injury lawyer, it's their responsibility to notify everybody that's involved in your case, meaning usually when you obtain a lawyer, the first person they would probably reach out to would be insurance companies. So they send the proper documents alerting the insurance companies that you're now being represented in a motor vehicle claim, and if they have any questions, concerns, that they have to go through their law firm. So their main responsibility is to allow you to step back and take care of yourself physically, you know, financially and emotionally, and recover, and they should be doing all the rest for you. Now, my personal injury lawyer, I reside a little bit into a country, so I'm kind of in country land, so I'm not in a big city. And I know when I had to try to get into like a walk-in clinic, like an outpatient clinic.
Right.
You know, I had a lot of rehab people coming into the home, but I was on a waiting list for quite a while to get into an outpatient clinic. So it was a little bit difficult to find services for me personally because of where I reside. So the law firm, and I would say the personal injury lawyer, or even people that work in the law firm, looked after that for me. You know, they would call on a regular basis and say, you know, is there anything else that you need? Or they would talk to my fiance and say, how is she doing? It was like a weekly check. What else does she need? What else can we do? And then they would take it upon themselves to start looking on my behalf. So if I needed an occupational therapist to come in, for instance, they would set that up for me because they're so experienced. And even though I was out in a different area compared to where their office was, they knew exactly what they were doing because they came with several years of experience. So they knew exactly, you know, who to contact and how to set everything up for you. So you don't necessarily, you know, when you come home to recover from a hospital, when you finally get home, you know, it's not up to you as the victim of the motor vehicle crash to set up all the services for you. And usually some of them work hand in hand. So let's say I had an occupational therapist and maybe that one pointed out, you know, you're going to need physio. I'm going to have to, and maybe it was the same company, I'm going to have to request physio to come in. You're going to need help with that. So because we all work together, they all work together on your behalf as a team. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of, you know, they're leaving charts in your home, and then other people are coming in maybe from the same company to get an update. So Yeah, so getting back to that with hiring a personal injury lawyer, they pretty much can do anything for you. And like I say, it's very crucial that you sit back and you take the time to recover, because that's your job. Our job is to recover, and everything else, either the personal injury lawyer will look after or family members. Mm-hmm.
I can tell you this, that when I had my crash, I had to turn everything in. I mean, everything. I had to give my clothes to him, my motorcycle helmet to him, my jackets, my gloves, anything. And I had to send it to him. But they needed, now the only thing they couldn't take, but they had photos of my motorcycle, because obviously the junkyard took that and it got released to the junkyard. So once they had that, anything else that I needed or they needed, they would contact me and say, hey, I need this. Can you get me a photo of this, or can you send me the actual item? And I would actually do that. And I didn't realize it at the time what they were doing. They, in an essence, was actually kind of getting all the money that would have been owed to me for even my clothing. And I go, I didn't even realize what they were doing. But then when he sat down and talked to me, he said, look, we're going to get you money for this, obviously your bike, your injuries, this, your medical things, this. They're going to have to pay for this. And I'm like, whoa. And I was like more blown away at the fact that what they were doing behind the scenes, I never even really knew, just looking at front and talking with them, everything that they would be doing and what they can do.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. When you mentioned the clothes, I wouldn't have known, because I went through that myself. I wouldn't have known that you would have gotten reimbursed for that. They were asking for a breakdown, et cetera. So they're your right-hand man. They guide you through everything, because they want your best interests are at their heart, to make sure that you're well taken care of, because a lot of people, this could be permanent. And it's largely life-changing to a victim. So definitely. So I understand exactly what you're saying, with that they had the breakdown of your helmet and clothes and this, and and you don't realize, because because I had an aha moment thinking, geez, I never thought of that. I never even thought you could get reimbursed for that. So it's because it's a learning process. Because like yourself, we had never been in a motor vehicle crash before, so you don't know what you don't know, kind of thing. So you learn as you go.
And it's true. If you don't know it, you don't know, but you think you know based on, you watch all those TV shows and they say do this, but they don't do everything. So I'm thinking, okay, that's what they're going to do. What I see on TV, that's the minimum. That's what they can do. But no, they can really get in there and get the nuts and bolts on everything, which was totally amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about something that really more leads toward the medical side. And, traumatic brain injury, TBI. You talk about that in the book. Did you have traumatic brain injury? And
I did.
Okay. Now, there's several things in this chapter, and I want to spend a little more time on this one than the other chapters, because knowing the signs and the symptoms of brain traumatic or traumatic brain injury is probably a lifesaver. And I think probably out of all the chapters in the book, depending on the kind of crash you end up in, this should be a red flag for everybody. Talk to me a little bit about this.
Absolutely. I'll be honest, I didn't know that I had suffered a traumatic brain injury probably for maybe 3 or 4 weeks after my crash, because, you're going through so much. I had multiple injuries.
Wow.
I had a broken back. I had 6 or 7 broken ribs. I had a seatbelt laceration that was getting daily wound care. I had a broken finger that I was trying to heal as well. So hematomas everywhere. I was a mess. So because there's so much going on, you're not really aware of quite all the damages, because you're just so so many things going on at once. So I would say 3 or 4 weeks in, I suddenly realized, I was starting to lose focus on the television. I couldn't hear loud noises. I instantly felt there was something wrong with my vision. I couldn't watch crashes on television, and back then I think it was close to Christmas, and of course people were visiting, and they've got movies on, and I remember sitting there thinking, is there ever a movie that doesn't have 5 or 10 or 12 crashes in it? Because you don't realize until it bothers you that, so many movies have, motor vehicle crashes in them. So I gave it a little bit of time and thought maybe, I'm going through a lot. I'm just going to leave it alone for now. And then I would say a few weeks later, I took it upon myself to advocate for myself, and I booked an appointment with an optometrist because I had 20/20 vision before my motor vehicle crash, and my vision was not good.
Wow.
And if anything, it was getting worse. So I went to go see an optometrist, and when I was there, I can't remember the name of the exam that he did on my eyes, and I explained to him what had happened to me, and I said, I'm having a lot of vision problems. And he did some type of exam on me where I was sitting waiting for him, and when he got the results, he said, I don't want to alarm you, but I have to do it again because there's a shadow, and it could possibly be a brain bleed. Ooh. So I thought, oh, my goodness. So he went and did the exam again and came back, and luckily enough, it wasn't a brain bleed. But then after that, my vision didn't get much better. I was prescribed reading glasses. I still had a lot of cognitive issues. It was really difficult for me to focus. I could only keep up with one conversation at a time. I used to be a wonderful, I don't even know if you'd call it a multitasker, that I could be somewhere and 5 conversations would be going on. I could listen to all of them and carry on a conversation with the person beside me. Yeah. I used to be a genius at that. Well, those days are over. I can't do that anymore. I can only focus on one thing at a time. So it's really important. And of course, in my particular case, in my motor vehicle crash, even though the airbag saved me and my seatbelt, I did partly go through the windshield. So I did have a laceration on my forehead as well from the crash. But it's just so important, if something doesn't feel right, I can't stress it enough that you just have to keep pushing doctors over and over until you're satisfied. Because a lot of victims kind of back off and think, well, I keep going to these doctors and they keep telling me everything's okay. And if you feel that you're still not okay, you have to keep pushing it. And that's what I did. I wouldn't let anything slide because, you're your best advocate. You know your body better than anyone else. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to any type of brain injury, whether it be mild, moderate, or severe, it has to be taken really seriously because it can be life-changing. Like you have to recognize the signs. If you're having, like myself, if you're having problems focusing, and maybe your personality moods have changed, and and if your family members are noticing a difference with you, with a brain injury, there's huge personality changes, and it's so important to keep following up with the right doctors to monitor you, to get into maybe some cognitive training. I did that quite a bit actually. The occupational therapist offered some really great, I can't think of the name of these, brain twizzers, I think you call them, or brain teasers. Right. But she had given me some things I could do on the computer just to test my cognitive skills to try to get back to where I once was.
Wow.
So any type of head injury in a motor vehicle crash should be taken really seriously. Mm-hmm. And
then have you kind of fully recovered, or are you still having some of the symptoms? Do they come and go? Or?
I'm gonna say I don't think I'll ever fully recover. I'm better, but I'm not as quick or sharp as I once was before my motor vehicle crash. So I've kind of embraced the new me. It took me a long time to do it, but there are some things I still won't be able to do. I'm not a huge multitasker anymore. And I've got good days and bad days. Like right now in Canada, the weather's changing. We're starting to get snow and ice. And anybody that has chronic pain, and you might go through the same thing because we were talking earlier, you said there's a little bit of a cold front coming in California. You know, your body will tell you 2 days in advance, there's a change in weather coming in.
Yeah, I can tell when it's going to rain.
There you go. Yeah, that's one of our perks that we get as a motor vehicle crash. We get to become automatic meteorologists.
Yeah, meteorologists.
So we can predict the weather.
All right, Dawn, I want to thank you for being on the show today. And again, next week we'll join together again, and we'll talk about some more about the book. But I can only encourage each and every person out there, talk Crash to Me. It's a fabulous book, and it has to be in your car because there's a lot of do's and do's and do's because they're all important. Not so much on the don'ts because everything in this book is relevant. Dawn, any last words here?
Oh, I just want to thank you again, Howard, for giving me this opportunity. I think it's fantastic that you've allowed me this opportunity, especially in 4 parts, to go through the chapters of my book. I can't thank you enough. I'm very appreciative for this wonderful opportunity, Howard.
Oh, it's my pleasure. All right. My special guest today, again, was Dawne McKay, Talk Crash to Me. This is part 2 of a series of 4 in a little mini-series that we're doing. This is a very special book. I wish I would have known about this because I would have paid attention more to actually my case than what I actually did. Although my lawyer was great and he fought for me, but there's probably things in here I'm going, I didn't know. Again, thanks for being with us. Next week will be part 3, the installment of part 3 in this series. Again, remember, I don't want to die today, do you? Don't let anyone take the sands of time within your own hourglass. Until next week, be safe.